Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are digging into some really rich theological ground.
We really are.
Our source material is this incredibly detailed Bible study outline. It's from the Deeper Christian Life Ministry, and it offers just a remarkably systematic look at what it calls divinely ordered preparation for God's promised full redemption.
It's a powerful document. I mean, it doesn't just read the Bible in isolation. It's really building a bridge.
A bridge between what exactly?
Between two whole historical eras. It starts with, the epic story of Israel's deliverance from Exodus, right from chapter 1.
Okay.
And it connects that event, which they call the exit from the iron furnace of Egypt. It connects it directly to the promise of full, free, and final redemption.
And that's for believers today.
Exactly. For believers today, who the study calls the Israel of God.
So our mission for this deep dive is to follow that blueprint. We're asking the big question: how does this ancient story, the Exodus, provide a reliable, a detailed pattern for deliverance that actually applies to you and me in the 21st century?
That's it. It's about finding the timeless instructions hidden in the history.
Yeah.
And the study, it immediately clarifies the stakes. You see, the whole purpose of God's intervention in Egypt, it wasn't just a political thing.
Not just freeing slaves from labor?
No, not at all. It was a cosmic event. God was delivering them with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. And those judgments were specifically aimed against the gods and deities of Egypt. This was a divine challenge to all false power.
That really sets the tone, doesn't it? Okay, so this blueprint, it's structured on 3 pillars.
The promise and price, the provision and preparation, and the pattern and perfection.
Let's dive right into that first one then. The historical foundation: promise, power, and performance.
Okay, so it all begins with the bedrock of the whole story, the promise. It's so critical to remember that this deliverance, it didn't just come out of nowhere. It was actually prophesied centuries earlier. To Abram, in Genesis, God assured him that his descendants would be afflicted for 400 years. But, and this is the key, when the clock ran out, they would come out with great substance.
And the source material really hammers this point home, this idea of the unfailing promise. It says what God had said, he will do.
Yes, because the Lord changes not. That stability, that unwavering character, that's the foundation for any hope of redemption. It's a guarantee.
So if the promise is a guarantee, then the power behind it has to be as well.
It has to be. I mean, think about it. Pharaoh was probably the most powerful man in the world at the time. He thought he controlled everything: life, death, labor.
Yeah.
But the study just describes God as mighty, wielding unchallengeable power. They cite Psalm 136, talking about deliverance, with a strong hand and with a stretched out arm.
I found the list of opposing forces in the document really fascinating. It goes to great lengths to say that nothing earthly or spiritual can stop this plan. It names people like Pharaoh, Nebuchadnezzar,
Herod.
but then it groups them with magical and occult people. What's the thinking there? I mean, why are they all considered sort of equal barriers to redemption?
That's a great question. In the context of this study, they're all seen as competing sources of power, or agents who try to frustrate the divine will.
So it doesn't matter if it's a king or a magician.
Exactly. The point, which is driven home by scripture like Numbers 23, God is not a man that he should lie, is that their power is temporary, it's finite, his is unchallengeable, they just can't reverse his word.
Got it. It's all about the ultimate authority. And that leads right into the third point here, the timing of the performance. It's just astonishing.
The precision is incredible, isn't it? Exodus 12 says the sojourning was exactly 430 years, and the deliverance happened on the self-same day. The time was up, not a day late.
And this absolute precision, it brings up a warning, really, one that feels so relevant for us today.
It really does. The source says it plainly. Every plan will fail when you run ahead of God.
And they use Moses as the example.
Right. 40 years before the appointed time, he tries to take matters into his own hands, by killing an Egyptian. He had the right desire, deliverance, but he was acting on his own timing, not God's.
So if rushing ahead is a guaranteed fail, what does the study say about hitting the brakes in our, fast-paced lives? It's so easy to see a problem and just try to solve it ourselves right now.
Well, the lesson is trust in the divine schedule. Moses' impatience led to 40 years in the desert, basically to unlearn that premature action. The source reinforces this idea that God is never late and his promises are never delayed.
So if it hasn't happened yet, it's not a failure, it's just not time.
Exactly. And that takes patience. It takes humility.
That makes the transition to the second pillar, the provision and preparation, even more powerful. If the promise is guaranteed but the timing is fixed, what do you do while you wait?
This is the absolute heart of it, the
Yeah.
Passover lamb. The instructions in Exodus 12 were so meticulous. On the 10th day, a family had to select a lamb, keep it until the 14th, then the whole assembly had to kill it. It wasn't random, it was a ritual.
And the most important part of that ritual surely was the blood.
Without a doubt, they had to strike the blood on the 2 side posts and the upper door posts.
The lintel.
The lintel, yes, as a token. That token was the only thing that separated a safe home from one that would face judgment. The lamb literally became the family's substitute.
And that substitute had to be perfect.
It had to be. Without blemish, a male of the first year. The logic is, it's simple, but it's powerful. An imperfect sacrifice cannot redeem an imperfect people. It had to be the absolute best.
And this is where the New Testament connection is just immediate and obvious. Christ is presented as that perfect substitute.
He is. The study calls him the one mediator between God and men and the propitiation for our sins.
Can we just clarify propitiation for a second? It's a bit of a technical word.
Sure. It just means the appeasing of divine wrath, specifically through a substitutionary sacrifice. The lamb's blood satisfied the requirement of justice, so the penalty could pass over the people.
So the study positions Christ as the final, complete satisfaction for sin.
That's the idea. And if Egypt is a type of the world, a place of bondage and false gods, then only those who apply that provision, who are saved by the blood of the Lamb, will escape the coming judgment.
Okay, so that's the provision side. But then there's the preparation, which demands our participation.
Right. This is where the source really emphasizes that salvation is a two-way thing. God provides the sacrifice, but you have to receive it and, enact the preparation.
Let's talk about that preparation. It wasn't enough to just apply the blood. They had this leaven rule.
Yes, they had to eat the lamb with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. This is not just some small detail, it's central to the whole thing.
And leaven, in the Bible, is almost always a symbol of what? Corruption?
Corruption, exactly. Pride, malice, hypocrisy, any kind of hidden sin.
So if I'm understanding this, the physical act of purging leaven from their houses back then is a metaphor for the internal act a believer has to do today.
Absolutely. The instructions were to search their homes for any leaven and get rid of it. The study argues that for the blood to be, quote, powerful enough for a believer, they have to actively confess and forsake every sin, to purge out every leaven of iniquity.
The denial of sin has to be active, not passive.
Yes. You have to do it. You are commanded to deny ungodliness and worldly lusts. The Israelites didn't hire someone to take the leaven out for them. They had to do it themselves. It shows that personal accountability.
I see the tension there.
Yeah.
God makes the perfect provision, the lamb, but we have to make the perfect preparation, purging the leaven. It's not enough to be covered by the blood. You also have to clean the house.
That is the dynamic.
Okay, this moves us perfectly into the final section. The pattern and perfection. We've got the promise, we've got the price. What does the continuous application of this pattern mean for final salvation?
Well, the first point is just reiterating the sheer cost of it all using 1 Peter. Redemption is not achieved by corruptible things as silver and gold. The source is adamant. Your good character, your religious rituals, your kindness, all the things we can produce, they're not enough.
Because they're all corruptible, they fade. But the precious blood of the Lamb, that's what secures peace. It's a divine act, not a human one.
And if we accept that price, the next step is what the study calls steadfast beholding of the Lamb, fixing your eyes on Christ. This leads to conversion, liberation, and purity of heart. And this is where we get the race analogy from Hebrews 12.
This is the big application moment, isn't it? To run with patience the race and reach the destination, the promised land or Canaan, you have to lay aside every weight.
And this is where the source gets incredibly granular and practical. When it talks about laying aside every weight, it doesn't just stay abstract. It jumps right to things like anger, bitterness, malice, and a bad tongue.
Can we pause on that?
Uh-huh.
How is my bad temper today, or my tendency towards a secret sin, the modern equivalent of a runner carrying a literal sack of stones? It feels like a bit of a stretch.
It's about the spiritual inertia they create. A literal weight slows you down. It exhausts you physically. Spiritual weights like bitterness or a bad tongue, they do the same thing to your soul.
How so?
They consume your energy. Through guilt, through broken relationships, through distraction, they stop you from focusing on the prize. The study specifically highlights sins that the devil knows we will easily yield to because they're often internal and we don't address them. Things like fleshy lust or just a bad and bitter tongue.
That grounding makes a lot of sense. So the anger isn't just a flaw, it's a barrier to moving forward in the race.
Exactly. You're trying to soar like an eagle, but you're carrying all this unnecessary baggage. And this brings us to the final and maybe the sternest warning in the whole study.
Which is?
Sustaining belief for final salvation. This is where we see that critical distinction between initial and final salvation, using that first generation out of Egypt as the ultimate cautionary tale.
So many Israelites got that initial salvation. They left Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, but they never made it to the final salvation of Canaan.
And why? Because of their continuous murmuring, their complaining, their idolatry, all the bad stuff they did after the initial deliverance.
I see.
The source warns that being redeemed from captivity is just the starting line. It's not the finish line. The journey requires keeping your confidence steadfast unto the end.
So the core takeaway is that final salvation isn't secured just by that one-time event of applying the blood, but through present sanctification, which is just a fancy way of saying practical, continuous holiness in your daily life.
Yes, you have to continuously believe and act on practical truth. Hold fast the form of sound words. Keep your doctrine, your good conduct, your commitment steady. That means dealing with the weights, the bad temper, the secret sins, the moment they show up. The preparation has to be continuous.
Wow. We followed this incredible blueprint all the way from the ancient prophecy given to Abraham through the mandated preparation of the Passover lamb and right into the daily race of laying aside these specific corrosive weights like anger and bitterness.
The synthesis is so clear. God's promise of full redemption is unshakable, but it's paired with these strict, continuous requirements for human action. The preparation, the purging of leaven, the confession of sin, that steadfast denial of ungodliness, it isn't optional. It's mandated by the pattern.
And to think that the way we run the race today, how we handle our temper, secret sin, and especially that bad tongue, directly impacts the final outcome according to this material.
Which leaves us with a provocative thought for you to consider. The ancient Exodus instructions required the Israelites to act in great haste, purging all leaven immediately to be ready for the journey. So what specific weight or leaven that easily besets you, that habit or attitude you've maybe grown a little too comfortable with, what would those instantaneous, urgent Exodus instructions demand you purge right now to ensure your preparedness?